Hello and welcome to another episode of I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness. I'm your host, Erin Jane, and today I am joined by Matt Pitcher. So Matt has a 22-year career in law enforcement, working in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department in North Carolina and Monroe County Sheriff's Office in Florida. He's had extensive undercover experience at both the state and federal levels, involving drug trafficking, organised crime, and domestic terrorism, receiving the Medal of Valor for his role in one such case. He's had involvement in Major Crime Investigations, including rape, human trafficking, and homicides, in particular one case involving a suspected serial killer. Matt medically retired from service in 2022, and he is here to share his experiences with us today. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, so do I. Wealth of knowledge and experience, and I'm super excited to chat with you today. First of all, we'll sort of just come out of the gates and what actually made you interested and go down the path to become a first responder and in particular law enforcement.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I never believe in doing things the easy way, I don't know why that is, but so I first, growing up and things like that, the undercover side of things always fascinated me. Now, when I was younger, of course, I the James Bond movies, that kind of thing. So I paid more attention to the CIA, that kind of thing. I said, oh, that would be so cool because I thought that's what the CIA actually did. Now, as you get older, you learn that 99% of it's paperwork. And you're like, maybe not. So I got into, I looked into that. And then I was in college and my brother's a little bit older than me, about 3 years older, and he became a police officer in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay.
And so, he's telling me, we talk on the phone, he'd tell the stories, and I'd be like, oh man, that's so cool. Especially when you're, early 20s and you're hearing about foot chases and all that kind of stuff. That seems like the greatest thing in the world. Also, and this is the embarrassing part, also at that time, I had started doing a little bit of acting. I had gone to a movie studio to be an extra because I heard you get paid $50 a day and you get to stand in the background and be in a movie. I'm like, well, that's just the coolest thing. So yeah, definitely, I'll do that.
Who could blame me for that?
Right?
It does sound cool.
And so I actually went to the movie studio to sign up to be this extra. And the lady's there like, well, have you ever thought about acting and done that? I'm like, well, no. And she hands me a list of 7 agents that they use. And it's like, contact them, see if anybody would want you. Might have some luck there. So I was like, what would I have to lose? So I ended up doing that, and got convinced to go out to LA.
Wow.
So, yeah, wow. You say that now.
You're like, let me finish the story.
So I did. I went out and I drove my mom's Ford green, what is it called? The station wagon version of that. I don't even think they make the car anymore. Anyway, I drove this thing all the way across the country to get out there. And obviously didn't have much money to stay anywhere. So I stayed in Compton, which was a lovely place to stay. I fit in very well. And it was a little literally falling apart motel. I think family owned, but it was the one place I could afford. So I stayed there, and I had one particular night there was an earthquake, only earthquake I've ever been through, and I had no idea what to do. Right, not from the West Coast, no clue. So I called my brother. At that point, he's like, "Hey, I just had an earthquake. What am I supposed to do?" And I forget what his advice was, but it was not good advice. I think it was get under a table or something like that. It was not what you're supposed to do. So I guess we had an aftershock, and I felt some of the ceiling kind of go my get some of the dust. So what? Maybe I should just go outside. Maybe it's safer outside. So I go outside, and there's 5 gunshots. I was like, maybe I should go back inside. I'm gonna go back inside.
Oh my God.
So, went through that, and I think I spent about 6 months out there, and I was like, you know what, this just isn't me. I'm hearing my brother's stories about law enforcement. I was like, that's my calling. I should have done it already. I'm going for it. And my goal is to become an undercover. So I put it into the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, got it, went through the interview, got made fun of from the guy that interviewed me because he asked, well, where do you see yourself going in the department? And I said, well, I have 3 areas that I'm going to do. I'm going to become an undercover, be on SWAT, and I'm going to be a chaplain for the police department. And he just kind of paused for a second, gave me a weird look. All right, we have a lot of people that say the first 2. I've never had that combination of 3. Well,
I was gonna say it's three very like diverse areas to go into.
Yeah, exactly. Which I wasn't allowed to do both SWAT and undercover work for obvious reasons. So I just worked my way, went through the academy, and the way Charlotte worked was they treated kind of like the NFL. They ran, at least at that time, I think they still do, pretty strict academy, a lot of PT, some yelling, that kind of thing, and then a lot of studying book work and everything that goes into it. And basically while you're in there, you're being graded on everything. Instructors are passing words along about how you're doing, your plus, your minuses, and all that. And so when you're getting close to graduating, they hold a draft. And so all the districts, because Charlotte had, I think, 12 districts at the time. And so they all get basically a stat sheet for you. Same thing as the NFL does.
Wow.
So depending on what order they are in the draft, depends on where you go. And so I'd done decent in the academy. And so I guess I was at the top of the list. Not the very top, but the district that had a bunch of drafts right in the beginning was called Baker 2 at the time. And Baker 2 was the district I didn't want to go to. Nothing wrong with it, but it was considered the easiest district. It was the least of the violent crime, none of the action, all the stuff that
you want to actually be challenged, all that kind of thing.
Exactly. So I originally was slated to go to Baker 2. I was kind of disappointed about that. And then a sergeant from David 3, where I wanted to go, came and saw me and said, hey, would you be interested in coming to David 3? We're looking at making a trade with Baker 2 to get you. And I was like, oh, yes, I'll do anything. Please let me come.
So really very much like the NFL is like, you got traded.
Yeah, I did. And it worked best thing that could have happened.
Yeah. So how old were you when you joined or when you got in?
That's a very good question. 22, 23. It was in July 2000 is when I went with CMPD. Let's see, I was born in 77, so 23. Actually, I think exactly 23. I turned 23 when I got hired, pretty much. So I went to David 3, and by far the best thing that could have happened. It's a very violent district, or it was at the time. Shootings were common practice, and then obviously homicides were up there too. And it was almost every single night that you'd be in foot chases. Fights were common. So you learn quickly or you were in trouble.
They sink or swim. Yeah.
But you also learn very quickly how to talk to people, how to communicate, and learn that no matter where you are, not everybody is bad. Which is a really obviously important thing to learn. Or not everybody's good and not everybody's bad. I had a training officer who, I don't even know if you're allowed to say this anymore, but it was the best advice you could give. Is if you want to stay alive in this job and you want to do the job well, you have to know when to punch somebody and when to hug somebody, and you have to know the difference. And that's true.
I'd say that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel unfortunately today we've lost some of that. There unfortunately is a time that you have to punch somebody. That's not an option.
No, very much so. I think the instructors when I went through the academy, they referred to it as verbal jujitsu. So it was you had to have those skills, and you're saying, know the difference. And I think the way that I was taught was very much while you're talking to them and engaging them and trying to maybe de-escalate a situation that it has the potential to escalate, like you're also then watching their body language. Do they have that 1,000-yard stare? Are they, doing that thing that they're gripping their hands in and out, which like shows that they're kind of getting ready to do something? Like you've got to have that overall intake of information and data that's being presented. So if you are talking and it doesn't work, well, sometimes you do have to go hands-on, but it's just part of the job.
I hate that 1,000-yard stare. Oh, I hate the 1,000-yard stare. Like, you just know. Every time you see, like, oh, this is going to be a bad day.
You're like, fuck, this is going to go south quick.
I don't even know why I'm talking right now because I know you're not listening to me.
Yeah. I think we've all had those ones.
Yeah.
And so was it David 3? Is that what the kind of
that's what the digit was called.
that you went to?
All the names now and all that. But
so that was kind of for want of a better term, kind of like just uniform duties, like on like visible uniform out on the street, general patrol, that kind of stuff.
So for the most part, and again, I wouldn't recommend this, and there's no way you'd get away with it today. But obviously, I knew I wanted to go into undercover work. Like, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Which your acting skills probably came in handy.
There you go, right? My failed acting, because I always refer to this, I'm a failed actor and undercover.
I'm sure they came in handy.
Exactly. But I went and I created what, and you probably know this, I forget what it stands for, but they were called SARA projects. And it was basically community improvement projects. And it was real big with the community policing at the time. And so I decided, hey, I know what I can do. So in order to help myself with the undercover side of things, I came up and passed it through my sergeant, and he approved it, which he should not have done. Was to go out there and start doing undercover work, street level, because we had a ton of the street level drug dealers, the corner dealers and all that. And I said, I'm going to go up, do a buy, and I'll have a marked unit right around the corner. So right after I do the buy, give the description, they come in and snatch them, and we're improving the community. Well, it was at best probably a year on when I started doing this. Highly not recommended. Zero training in undercover work. Yeah, just stupid all the way around. It's one of those ones, don't mistake good luck for good tactics. There was no good tactics. It was just fortunate luck. So I did that, and we had success, but again, good luck, not good tactics.
As an Aussie, I would say that you had more ass than class back then.
Exactly, 100%. And I'm funny because also, like, this is how things have changed. So when I was with my FTO, Vice called in one night. Obviously, this is where I want to go. And it's like, hey, we're getting ready to do a search warrant. We need a uniformed officer. Well, my FTO is like, oh, you need to get this under your belt anyway. So we meet them they're in the van. We meet them in the van. I just jump in. They say, all right, this guy's hitting it, and you have to be the first one through the door because you're in uniform. No idea what.
They put you first in the fucking stack with no experience. Are you serious?
Yeah. So they hit the door. They hit the door. Door opens. I literally run straight through the living room, pass up like 3 people because I'm an idiot, and just keep running. I guess I'm going for the wall. I don't really know what my game plan was on this one. I get to the kitchen and fall through the kitchen. Like, the floor was soaked. They had let the sink run. Like, the sink was clogged with a diaper. It was your trap house. And so it had been running over, must have been for weeks or months even, because I hit that wood floor and I went right through it. So I embarrassed myself on my nice first search warrant, but then they explained how you do it.
Yeah, but I also look at it like in obviously not great, but in hindsight, the worst thing that you could have done was go through the door and then stop, because then obviously you're preventing like aggressive, like everyone in piling in after you. So at least you kind of didn't make it unsafe in that aspect. Looking at like the positive side of things.
Yeah, and I did later on a search warrant where shots were fired and the guy in front of me froze in the doorway. We literally knocked him to the ground and everybody ran over because you don't have a choice. The game's on at that point. You don't stop.
Yeah, very much so. And so was it working at David or David 3? I'm aware that you lost some like good friends and colleagues that you worked with. Were they in the same like department as you, or were they at a different station?
No, they were in David 3 with me in my station. And so at that point, this would have been 2007. I was
Okay.
with the division, but at that point, I was pretty much doing all undercover narcotics work. But I wasn't assigned to vice narcotics. I was still the street crimes unit for that district.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they were two great officers, Jeff Shelton and Sean Clark. And it was the night before they were murdered, executed by a coward. I'd actually talked to Sean. Sean's like, "Hey, any chance I could do a ride along with you and start to learn how to do undercover work?" I mean, just the greatest guy in the world. And I was so excited. I was like, "Yes, he'd be real good at it. Perfect, good tactics, everything." And then that next night, so we had a football game that day. We had it's the Charlotte Cobras, and it's a nonprofit. There's a league called the NPSFL, which is the National Public Safety Football League. Basically, you have to be a firefighter, paramedic, or law enforcement with a badge in order to play.
Yeah.
And it's a great league. I mean, I got to play LA, New York, and all that. But we had the football game that day, and I was getting ready to go to sleep that night, and the call came in. A friend of mine called, and she was basically to her shot. I was like, "Well, what kind of condition?" And she's like, "I don't think it's good." So I literally jumped out of bed, grabbed my gun and radio, and out the door, and called on the way. Do I go to the scene or do I go to the hospital? And ended up going to the hospital. And like that night was one of the most just awful nights. So they kept them alive. Like the shooting happened. I don't remember the exact time. And I could be wrong. So I'm gonna say around 10:30 p.m. March 31st. And they got them to the hospital. They kept them alive until their wives and family could show up to say goodbye. There was nothing that could be done to save them. So they had gotten out with the guy earlier in the night, and he was definitely up to no good, but they didn't have anything. Let him go. And then they got called back to the area, totally unrelated, about 30 minutes later, 45 minutes later, for a domestic call. And they handled the domestic call. Well, this coward had saw him go to his apartment to handle the domestic call, and waited till they came out, and they came up behind him and shot them both in the back of the head. Just like I said, a complete coward and loser. And I won't say his name. That's why I keep calling him just a coward.
No.
So
I'm so sorry to hear about the loss of your friends. That's tragic. And I can, I know of obviously like similar kind of things that happened in my police department. I think mostly prior to my time in there, and it just that haunts the police department, something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, especially those of us from David 3 and stuff, we still every single year. Matter of fact, we just, it was only 10 days ago, because technically their death was on the 1st because of keeping them alive until the family could get there. I mean, that was
just the early hours.
Still so vivid seeing their wives arrive. And you can't. I'll never be able to understand what was going through. Like I just can't. There can't be anything worse. And like Sean, he had basically a newborn. Well, she was pregnant, and then he had. Well, I guess he was probably about 3 at the time. And it's funny. Not funny. The child she was pregnant with, he looks just like Sean. But
that's
to show you how strong the wives are, they have both gone on to do some great things. in honor of Sean and Jeff, and
Yeah.
they're stronger than I could ever be. They're incredible. Some terrific women, to say the least.
No, I mean, yeah, so devastatingly sorry, and I appreciate you even talking about it, because you can see how much it even still impacts you, and it's just, yeah, the worst of the worst when you're in that law enforcement realm. It's literally what we all hope doesn't happen
Yeah,
to your
it's funny.
department and your friends.
You and I have been talking about working on writing a book, and that chapter is a chapter I can't finish. Like I have part of it. That one.
Yeah,
One of these times I just have to suck it up and get through it, but I haven't done it yet.
that's a heavy chapter to write, man. I wouldn't blame you for that one. You have it all. But no, thank you for sharing that with us. So obviously, when you've joined, and like you're saying, you just had like such a like tunnel vision career trajectory. So tell us sort of how you kind of got to doing that, or being in a position to do the UC work.
So I did, I came with that Sarah project early on to start to build that, and then I've been very fortunate to have a lot of success with confidential informants and working informants, which is obviously a big part of the role too.
Yeah.
And then also the undercover aspect. So I got into the street crimes unit and proved myself to be very good at buying dope, which I don't know if that's a good thing to be good at or not. I haven't figured that part out yet.
Yeah, you can take it as any sort of compliment. Let's be positive.
But I'm also good at picking up prostitutes, so I'm good at a couple things there.
Wow, your wife must be like real pleased with you.
So my sergeant, one time, we had a certain area that was really bad for street prostitutes, like prostitutes working the corners, walking up and down. Mm-hmm. And my sergeant calls and says, "Hey, I need you to pick one up." So no problem. He left out some details when he told me this, but it happened to be a Hispanic male. It was not a female. And also didn't speak English very well or at all.
Jesus.
So we communicated through body language.
Mm-hmm. That would have been fun and interesting.
I wanted and what he needed to receive in return.
Oh, Jesus.
So obviously my sergeant very much enjoyed this one.
I bet.
Decided to take, because the subject was normally a cross-dresser and actually had his wig in his hand, and also a bag with his dress in it. So after he's arrested for the prostitution aspect of things, my sergeant in Spanish asked him if it'd be okay to take his picture, and he was all about it. He had no problem at all. Thought that was a great idea. And so my sergeant took his picture. This was the beginning of December, and my sergeant went on to also feel like, hey, this would make a great Christmas card to send to everybody, including me and my family.
So I was like, I was going to go up at the police department somewhere. Like, what are they going to do with it? That's ingenious, actually.
Yeah, smart guy.
Got to give him points for effort there.
Yeah, exactly. So he got me on that one. It was fun. So that was.
I mean, God, if you can't have fun with that kind of stuff, you're going to be in the wrong job.
Yeah, that and my other claim for fame. Well, I have a couple that I'm proud of on the street level side of things. I had, and my brother just found this story out, and I had totally forgotten about it. And then he was meeting with somebody who happened to be now a captain, or major. I think it's captain, in CMPD, and he goes, "Oh, you're Matt's brother? Oh, I got stories for you." And we had done a search warrant one day, and we're still in the van, and obviously I was DC, so I was still in plain clothes. I was the one who would always drive the van, that kind of thing. And we were done with the search warrant, and we saw a prostitute walking down the street, and they made a bet because I have all the uniformed officers in the back of the van. and they said, "We bet you can't pick her up and make a case on her." Well, in law enforcement, you can't turn that down. You've got to do it. So I circle back around and get her in the van. And keep in mind, the only thing that covers from the back is like a cloth thing, right? That's the only thing. And of course, they decided that there was no reason for them to be quiet. So they're making all kinds of noise back there while I'm sitting there trying to make a case on her. She finally opens up the curtain and looks back there and then turns around and shuts the curtain right away and has, that big stare. And she's like, "There's people back there." Like, it's fine. It's just some people that work for me. You have nothing to worry about. Still make the case.
That's impressive. Exactly. I would be too. Do that. Oh my goodness. Your book's going to be stellar if you add all of these things in. It's going to be great. Good read. I'll happily flog it for you.
Thanks.
So we're talking about you getting into the UC work.
Yeah, so all of that kind of was prepping me. So when I put in for vice and narcotics, I had a decent resume to go with it. Bought numerous drugs. I have numerous confidential informants already. So it made that.
So just basically anyone that goes to vice and narcotics, is that like part of the purview of that department that they do UC work?
So not necessarily. You'll have some that go in that have never done UC work. You'll have people in the federal level that'll go into undercover work having basically never done any undercover work. But being able to say that I had done a lot would put me at the top of the list, basically.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, when you go to put in for narcotics, you turn in a resume. I believe there was a written test, and then you have an interview. I'm trying to remember if I had to meet with. I can't remember for sure, but I think I may have had to meet with the psychologist too to get into vice and narcotics. I'm not positive on that one. So
was there any kind of training before you entered into that kind of higher level UC work? Was there any training, or you're saying addressing the psychological aspects of being so deceitful on purpose?
The psychological aspect, no. I guess they skip over that part.
Yes. Oh, it's through the keeper.
Once you're selected, and they say, yeah, you're coming, then you basically, it's pretty much starting law enforcement all over again. You're with an FTO then for 3 months.
Okay.
At least 3 months. And you also have tests that you have to do and all this different stuff and prove that you're going to be able to do it. Because there's two aspects. You have to know the law. That's vice and narcotics are the black sheep of every department. And I get it. Obviously, usually don't look very good. And you're the ones out there buying drugs and picking up prostitutes. So it kind of gives you a bad rep. But I've always, and I will argue this with anybody, if you want to talk about the officers that know or the detectives that know the law better than everybody else, it's going to be your vice and narcotics guys. We write more search warrants than anybody else. And you're always walking that line, so you have to know law. You can't break it. You got to know what you can and cannot do. Yeah. So that's why there is a lot of studying that you have to do before you're going to be cut loose to go on your own. And then, you ride with the FTOs and they'll have you do all kinds of dumb stuff. I had an FTO that had me going to the mall and says, well, we're not leaving until you get 3 phone numbers. And it can't be trying to pick girls up on a date. It can't be any of that. You have to figure out another way to get 3 phone numbers. However you have to do it, do it. It's just teaching you to think outside the box a little bit and to get it. And I'm trying to remember, I went into a store for one and basically got them talking about a certain product and all that. And they were like, yeah, I haven't used it yet, but I have been curious about it and all that. And I said, well, if you want, give me your phone number and I'll try it out and I'll let you know what it's like if it works. Yeah. And that. So, but it's just teaching us the kind of think outside the box.
Well, and also not only think outside of the box, but to be able to think on your feet. Like,
Yeah.
is what I can imagine. Obviously, I haven't done any UC work, but I imagine just would be so incredibly crucial just to be able to like have that instantaneous, like, nah, I know how to tackle this, or I know how to get around this, or navigate it, or to keep, to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, and to be comfortable with your decision making on the spur of the moment, because once you make a
Mm.
decision at that point, there's no turning back. Obviously, you got to roll with whatever you say. Like if you're dumb enough
Yeah.
to say you're a billionaire, you've got to figure out then how to make a case around being a billionaire.
Yes, yes, which is, an interesting segue, one might say, Matt.
Well, I make fun of myself because that was I thought the case had already gone south. So this is the first long-term deep cover case, and we're kind of fast forwarding, but that's all right. So I had gotten hurt playing football, blew out my knee, and so I had surgery done on it, and so now I'm coming back from that 4 months later, and tried to pick up where I left off, and obviously your informants and stuff like that move on, so you're kind of a little bit starting from scratch. And one of the last people I dealt with was a stripper who I was buying cocaine from her, just started buying cocaine from her. I bought one time from her. I was like, I got nothing to lose, so I call her up. I'm like, hey, remember me? Still dealing? So I end up, she's like, yeah, buy another 8-ball of cocaine, which is just 3 grams. It's nothing outstanding. But I knew who her supplier was, and I really wanted to get to him. So I do the buy from her, and, when you're doing this, you're trying to figure out, to get to the next level. Yeah, I'll say it. You got to up the amounts, right? You can't stay at that amount and think that you're ever going to get the supplier involved.
Yeah, massively. Yeah.
Yeah. So I tell her, listen, this is pretty much just a trial. I got to give it to my sister. I don't know if I said that on that one, but basically this is a trial amount. I'll get back to you, and I might be interested in a lot more. She's just like, the whole drug deal was so off from anything I'd ever done. Like, normally drug deals are very high stress. Everybody's got everybody's thinking
Skin in the game. Yeah.
Everybody's scared to death the entire time. She pulls up in her car. She has me do the deal less than 100 yards from where she lives in this condo. I'm in the nicest section of Charlotte doing this deal. There's a section called Valentine, and it's super, super nice. So I'm already kind of caught off guard a little bit. And so she pulls up, and she's like, hey, get my car. So I get in her car to do the deal, and she has it stuffed in a cigarette pack, pulls it out, hands me the cocaine, and then continues to start to talk, and not drug talk, just talk. Just general conversation. Yeah. What is this? This is not how this goes. She's telling me that, I'm in school right now. I'm hoping to become a nurse, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, this is not, like, I feel like I need to teach her how to do drug work, because obviously she's not very good at it.
It's called building rapport, Matt.
So we finish it, and I call her. I don't remember if it was I think it was the same day. I was like, hey, stuff is good. I liked it. Let's get together and talk about me buying a whole bunch more. And so she's great. Has me come back to the same area at a really nice restaurant there. And so we call these, at least in my department, we call these yaks. And that's when it's basically going to have a conversation about buying more dope. Pretty common. Eases everybody's tension. Like, I've done them 100 times. Plus, you get a free meal on the city's dime. So that's always nice. Normally, it's not at this nice of a place. It's something like Hooters or something like that.
Yeah. But they might be questioning that receipt when it's brought up.
Yeah, exactly. So I get there, and obviously have my close cover team in the parking lot around, so everything is good and I'm safe and all that. I got my little phone there, and these are the old flip phones. So I'm sitting there, and she pulls up in her vehicle and gets out, and she is wearing a very nice white dress. I'm like, well, this is odd. This is not a normal outfit. This isn't a normal restaurant you go to.
Sounds like a date.
And it's funny, you're not the only one who thought that. So it doesn't take long before my post-cover team also sees this. And they're basically, holy shit, you're using the city to go out on a date. I'm like, oh, this is not good. So she sits down, and yeah, she thinks it's a date. Like, conversation isn't about dope. Like, oh, this case is over. I was like, if she's trying to date me, this is not gonna work. I'm gonna have to figure out another way to supply her. So I don't really care at this point. So I was like, you know what? Gonna have a little fun for the next little bit. And that's where the billionaire comes into play. She's like, well, what's your story and all this? I'm an orphan. I had a trust fund and got lucky and was able to turn it into $1 billion kind of thing. And never say that to a stripper. Just don't. Not all, but a lot of strippers have a tendency to really, really like money.
Just seeing dollar signs, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the professional term is you were pulling shit out of your ass.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. I just didn't care at this point. Like, obviously, I would never ever recommend saying that to anybody. You don't want to say
yeah, but at that point, you're kind of like, what have I got to lose?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I literally thought I'm going to be turning around signing a warrant on her for the dope I already bought, and either she worked as an informant or I'll figure out another way around it. So we do end up talking about dope later on in the conversation, and she's like, I'll talk to my supplier. Shouldn't be an issue to get you whatever you need. Like, I mean, it was not a long conversation about dope. That was not the purpose of this dinner, apparently, which I did eat well. So, I mean, it's important. I felt that was good. And then I get back to my car after my date, and my sergeant had left me a message to give him a call whenever I was done with my date. And he just made fun of me. But then we end up talking for a little bit. She called me and told me whatever I want from the supplier, just let her know. So I think it was an ounce is what we tested the waters with on this next one, which is a trafficking amount of cocaine. So she says, all right, and gives me the price. And it was like $1,200, something like that. Normal, everyday price. But then she says, I'm working at such and such club tonight. Just bring me the money. And then when I get off work, I'll go pick it up. And then we'll meet up tomorrow. Well, obviously, that's kind of frowned upon a lot of times in the dope game. You just don't really let the money walk.
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, Sarge, I'm going to need $1,200, but I'm going to not be able to get the dope to you right away. And we talked about it for a minute, and we both agreed on the same thing that, her supplier was a great supplier. He was supplying celebrities, athletes, very, very well known.
You name it.
Kind of, and I was like, I've got everything on her. She's been an open book. So I know where she lives. I know this. I know, like, everything. And so we decided, we might as well let the money. It's worth the risk on this one to let the money walk. All sides point that she's not going to rip me off. And
also, if you are like going back to, maybe a little bit of method acting, if you are supposedly, got more money than sense, like $1,200, it's nothing to you. So you're going to have that free flowing nature with too.
Exactly. So I go to the club, hand her the money, get done handing the money, get back in my car. Like, well, I hope I'm not an idiot because I'm really going to hear about it if I lose $1,200.
Oh, yeah.
But everything works out. She gets off work, does exactly what she says, is nice enough to call me at 3 o'clock in the morning to let me know she has the cocaine, even though there's no way I'm going to get the cocaine at 3 o'clock in the morning. And also at 3 o'clock in the morning, still wanted to have more conversation and talk some more. Not exactly what I wanted to do. But so next day, I get one other person be my close cover, go pick up the dope from her. Go smooth. Obviously end up talking to her again for a little while. Definitely clear at this point that the money aspect is very intriguing, let's put it that way, to her, and she is wanting to date. So we ended up talking at that point. I was like, well, I've got an idea. I think we might be able to handle this for at least a little while until I can get close to the supplier. And there's another undercover who I've worked numerous cases with, who she's one of the best undercovers I think there is. Makes my job super easy. So I was like, we're going to bring this other undercover in as my sister. That way she can think that we're about to start this relationship. I've got my sister there to make sure nothing happens. I have proof that nothing happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we do that. We and we do a couple more buys in there, and then we do a 2-ounce buy. And like, I'm trying to get up to kilo level. I'm trying to get that kind of trust up to the kilo. We're not running issues with the supplier. We're running issues with the supplier trusting the stripper enough for a kilo
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
At
Or
this
wanting to
point,
get to that point where they want to meet you.
exactly. And at this point, we're going out to the club every single night, making sure that we're seeing nonstop. So, and this is going on for about a 2 to 3 week period, let's say, in there. We end up doing a 2-ounce, like, we're not getting where we need. We do set up to do a 2-ounce deal where she's got to go pick it up from his house. The stripper does. And we play, I'm out of town, then I'm not going to be able to help on this one. But my sister is going to handle it. And we're going to take her off, basically. We're going to let her pick up the dope, and then we're going to pick her off and see if she'll flip. And behind it, been to the club enough. I have had a conversation a couple times with the supplier. He's starting to like me, so I'm thinking, if this goes south, I'm not burned in any way. We're still good. So we take her off and take her back to the station. She immediately gives up who she just bought the cocaine from. She will not give me up. Will not say that the cocaine's like covered for me left and right. I'm sitting because you have the interview room and you have watch, right? And I just die. And of course, I'm thankful for that too.
Must have been true love, Matt.
Yeah, I guess so, right?
And what was your like, just to interject quickly, what was your like family situation at that time? While you were going to strip clubs every night?
Married with a newborn, and I would say I broke rules because my wife knew everything I was doing, like, and that is probably a large thing why we're still married. Because I was flat out honest that, like, literally during this, I'm at the strip club every single day. And I even told her that I have a girlfriend. And of course, she knew how we handle things and all that. And that this girl was batshit crazy. She literally was. That was the other side of the stripper. She was not. Like, I remember she was doing some of her homework one time, and she asked me what 8 times 3 was. And I told her 24. And she goes, "You could not be more wrong. It's 27. She would not, even to the point where she put it in a calculator, wouldn't believe the calculator. I was like,
so we can all hope that she did not go down the nursing route, because I'd be worried about the amounts of fucking drugs she'd be dispensing.
You're supposed to take this much morphine. I'm just going to go with this. It'll be fine. Yeah, so it was...
Life's no cut was us.
So they take her off. She won't give me up. And very good friend of mine. I think
she turned into a CI at that point?
Temporarily. So my buddy Jeff comes, is like, "I've got an idea. Let's have the best of both worlds. We're going to let her walk to work, and let's see what she does with you. She doesn't know who you are. She doesn't know you're a cop. Let's see how she handles this." And basically, she wants me to help her to work this stuff. And so, hey, not a problem. We can do that. It was a problem. So we go out a couple times where she's an informant, and I'm just helping her out. My sister and I are helping her. And she's getting hammered and just sloppy drunk. I was like, something's going to go wrong if we keep going.
Yeah. So
we end up having a conversation. Well, first, to tell you what kind of UC my sister is and how nice she is, and I hope she watches this then. She thought it'd be real funny one night. We were taking the stripper back to her condo, and the stripper's like, stripper's in the front seat, sister's in the back seat, and the stripper's like, "You're going to walk me up and come in, make sure my house is safe, right?" And you know how you can do that, like, little side glance to the back seat? I was like, "Yeah, my sister and I'm not using her real name because she's still, or not using her name because she still uses her UC name." So my sister is like, "Yeah, he'll walk in." Or I said, "My sister and I will walk in, no problem." And my sister's like, I don't really need to. I'll just wait in the car. You guys go ahead. And as soon as the stripper starts to get out of the car, I turn around and give that look like, I'm going to kill you in a minute. And she literally held on. Like, she let me get out of the car and everything. So I'm processing now. I've got to figure out a way to get out of this. And she's going to play this one till it, and then she immediately gets out of the car. I said, oh, wait, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll come on. I was like, all right, you're dead later.
Oh, my goodness.
We have a conversation after a couple times out with that and decide we got to bait on her. So I went out a couple times when I knew she wasn't going to be around, and went out by myself and got Mikey and was able to befriend Mikey really well. And then we ended up doing a few buys from Mikey directly. Mikey and I become extremely good friends to the point where I helped him move, actually.
There you go. I mean, if I was a billionaire, I would just pay people to do that kind of shit. But, you should have.
Well, we were that close. And it was funny because, this was when I was, FBI wasn't involved yet. And I meet with my sergeant and say, hey, Sarge, Mikey wants me to help him move. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And he's basically, what is wrong with you?
Billionaire for Sarge.
And I was on a podcast with this. I owe him my life, literally. I mean, he kept me alive through this case. So he is one of my closest friends, and we stay in contact today and everything else. He's just an awesome, awesome guy. But I missed the part while I'm going through this. Another thing that happened in there is we went to, the stripper took us to a birthday party of somebody, Marcos, and had no idea who Marcos was, never heard of him before. But, my sister and I go to a party, walk in, and it's one of those moments where you can look around, not that we judge, but you can look around and say, oh, this is something.
Yeah.
This could be good. And so I get introduced to Marcos and introduced as, this is Marcos, friend of the Greeks. I was like, well, that's a interesting way to introduce somebody.
So that's a drug dealer name if ever I've heard of it.
Yeah. And so keep in mind, Marcos at this time was in his 50s, I'm going to say. And I don't think he was considered an overly attractive person. But yet he had early 20 girls hanging all over him. And then every once in a while, they'd sneak off to the bathroom after they meet with them and everything else. So you're like, all right, well, I know what's going on here. This is good. Yeah. As you say, it's a target-rich environment in there. So at first, Marcos really likes my sister. Oh, I like hanging out with them. And then I'm able to talk to Marcos, and then Marcos and I start to get close. Talk that night, and then my stripper girlfriend, Lovely, obviously is telling everybody I'm a billionaire. Which could be a huge problem, but could also be a very good thing. Well, Marcos likes the idea that I'm a billionaire for what he wants to do. And the other thing is, another thing that paid this case off that made it so great is my stripper girlfriend was telling everybody we were sleeping together, which obviously sounds like a horrible thing, but if you need instant credibility, nothing says you're not a cop than if you're sleeping with, especially this stripper all the time. So it kind of paid off in that sense. She basically was telling everybody that because she now has her money and she wants to make sure no other, because she knows I'm in the strip clubs all the time. So she wants to mark her territory, basically. Say handle.
Yeah.
So perfect. I'll take it.
kind of like her peeing on your leg, but
yeah, exactly. not literally. So we ended up leaving that party that night, and both my sister and I like, I need to get closer to that guy too. So this was the really hard part about the case is you literally, they're connected, but they're not connected. I'm hanging out with these two people. And so pretty much I'll spend half the time with Marcos and half with Mikey, and then pretty much become almost all my time with Marcos and a little bit here and there with Mikey, but that's over time. But Marcos and I go out, it was maybe 2 nights later, we're talking, he's like, so what's your deal with Charlotte? Because I wasn't from there, supposedly. And I was like, well, I'm thinking about opening up a club. And at this point, I'd also known that Marcos opens clubs. That's his thing. You go to him if you want to open a club. And I said, I do a lot of business in Chicago and some other places, and basically I want to start bringing some product, and I need a place to put it, and so that's what I want the club for. I think I said bar at first, not club. Just basically a rundown where I can store dope and not raise issues. And he's like, all right. He goes, well, you're going to need to have that. And you're also going to have a club that's upscale that people like and all that. So you're going to have to open up 2 clubs. He goes, but I can help you through all of it. Not a problem. So that kind of began our friendship right there. And Marcus and I were together pretty much every day. I'd go meet him at the strip club at 8 o'clock in the morning where he does business. And, you watch these mob movies and stuff, which I hadn't watched at the time, which I wish I had. But looking back, like, oh, wow, that's actually more accurate than people think. Because you literally hang out at these stupid places all day. You don't do work. Weird. But so we would hang out there and just talk, do nothing. We would drink nonstop. Like, that was the hardest thing, was because I'm sure I never saw him actually do it, but he had to be doing some coke. And he was fine getting by on 2 hours of sleep or whatever. I started downing Red Bulls like they were water to try to keep up. And like I can remember a couple times lying and feeling my heart coming through my chest lying in bed. Like, I'm going to kill myself in this case. It's a wrap.
Yeah.
But so Marcos and I were talking one night at the strip club, and he's like, well, he was from Bolivia, and he had connections into the political system in Bolivia. This was the same time that DEA was getting kicked out of Bolivia. And right now, I'm working with the DEA also in this case. And we start talking that we're going to use my plane, and we're going to bring 50 kilos every other week into Charlotte from Bolivia. That we had, he worked a political aspect in Bolivia to make sure we're good. I'll bring it right in here and everything will be fine. So that was the game plan.
It's escalation, one might say.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm so happy at this point, right? This is Cloud9 moment. This is going to be a great case. We'll use a DEA plane. We'll do one load, and boom, I'm a hero. So,
and how long has this case accumulated over?
Now we're probably at the 3 to 4 month period into it. Okay. So we go out, and then I think it was 2 days later. He's like, hey, come meet me for lunch. And he lived in a high-rise condo, and there's a little restaurant right where he lived. So I meet him there, and he's like, all right, here's how we're going to do this. And then all of a sudden he starts talking about all the people we're going to pay off. When he talks, and he had brought this up before about, you have to be sponsored with the clubs, either the Greeks, the Italians, or another name that I'm not going to go into, in order to open up a club, because otherwise you can't. And there was another time we were out where he showed me a sushi restaurant uptown. He says, this is the best sushi you're ever going to get on the East Coast. It'll be gone in a month because they're not sponsored. So basically, you're not going to get permits. It was extortion. Like, it will kick you out. There were other bars that had the exact same situation. This was nothing new. So obviously, it's Marco's friend of the Greek. No clue as to who I was going to be sponsored by. So obviously he's like, yes, we'll go through the Greeks. They'll take care of us, all this. We're going to have to pay off some politicians to get permits through and all of that. And the Greeks will make sure nothing happens to your place and provide you protection. So, all right, cool. That's what we're going to do. When I go back and talk about this, and they're like, if it involves political corruption, it's not a DEA case anymore. That trumps everything, and it now goes FBI. So I ended up getting hooked up with a couple guys from the FBI.
Yeah.
And they were all about the case. Like, apparently they had tried to get people into Charlotte numerous times before with zero success. So they're now quasi-involved. And they basically give me my marching orders, stay the course. We've got a number one. Our goal will be to find another UC to bring in with you, who will be your money man, who eventually can take over and leave you out of the case, which is good. Obviously, I'm playing in my own backyard. That's not necessarily a good thing. I didn't know how long it takes them to find a UC and all that. So this went, another year before another UC was involved.
Jesus Christ, another year?
Yeah, it had to be close to that because the case was 2 years total, 4 months, a little under a year. But then the next issue came, it took forever to get them to deal with him.
Yeah. Build the
And
trust and rapport and everything. Yeah.
And FBI doesn't do the whole embedding thing where you're there 24/7. So this guy would fly in for a couple of days and leave, and they weren't real fond of that. So that wasn't helping the situation either. So it took forever.
And I mean, how are you like psychologically dealing with the fact of, it sounds like you were spending a lot of time with these people and not just, there's like my 8-hour copper shift, like you're spending time with these people and then, you have like a wife and a little baby at home. Like,
so I basically
like,
didn't I didn't get to see my wife and kid, and honestly, you don't even get to talk a whole lot because you can't talk when you're around other people. So, and it's hard too. Like, and in the second case, my wife and I talked about it at one point where, yes, I want to talk to my family. I want to be with my family, but you kind of have to turn that life off. And so when you talk to them and it puts you back to who you actually are, which in this particular case is not a good thing. You need to be this other person. So you've got to keep that mindset. You can't be thinking about other things.
So significant like compartmentalization is sort of going on for you during this period.
Yeah. On the bright side, I'm getting to spend lots of money and eat really good food. So, I mean, you got to look at the positives and drive really nice cars. Matter of fact, so I've gotten so close to Mikey at this point, too, that we're in Porsche that's supposedly owned by me. And we've been out, and Mikey was concerned that I had too much to drink. Which little does Mikey know I've been pouring drinks out, but that's all right. But Mikey's like, listen, you can't go to jail. Let me drive so that somebody has to go to jail. It's me, because there was also dope in the car too for Mikey. So Mikey's like, you can't get caught with anything. Like, he was literally concerned about something happening to me. Such a nice guy. Mikey is the one who should have had me. We had gone out. One time we were out and we were at a nice club, and there was an off-duty officer there who actually knew. Like, the good thing is a lot of people forget who you are and everything else when you go to Vice and Narcotics because you can't really hang out with them anymore. But he knew me from back when I was on patrol. He was a neighboring district. And I saw him notice me in the club, but I knew he knew I went to Vice. And obviously there's an SOP which, if anybody doesn't know, SOP is just standard operating procedure. Yeah, that you can't talk to undercover unless an undercover approaches you. No matter where you are, when it is, anything like that, you never ever approach them. So I wasn't too concerned, and I'm literally right next to my drug dealer buddy and a couple of his friends, and we're talking, having a good time. And I hear my name, my real name, a couple times. I hit Matt at. I'm like, oh, you gotta begin this. This ain't gonna happen. And I was hoping I ignore it and it goes away, right? Isn't that the golden rule? You ignore something, it goes away.
Exactly.
And then I feel the hand on my shoulder, and I'm like, I'm dead. This is over. And he goes, Matt, my picture, like my whole name. And at this point, he has the drug dealers. He has Mikey's attention too. And he goes, you work CMPD. I'm like, you. So I was like, dude, I don't know who the fuck you are, but you're wrong. And it actually pissed off my drug dealer buddy to where he's like, dude, leave him alone. He's not who you think he is. And we turn around after our conversation, like, well, thanks for saving my life there.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness.
So that was the first time with him. And then we were at a party, and this was a who's who party. There were celebrities at the party, athletes, and he was the drug dealer for this party. And I drove him there, and he had a ton of drugs. And so we're at the party. So there's somebody that I went to high school with. Now, keep in mind, I went to high school in Pennsylvania, right? Far away from here. She had been on a TV show, on a reality TV show. And so she had quasi-celebrity status. So she ends up at this party, which I knew there was a chance she'd be at this party. But I hadn't seen her since I was in 8th grade. I was like, there is no way she would recognize me. I'm good to go. Like, I was not worried about it. And there's, 300 people at this party. So I'm at the party, and Mikey, my drug dealer buddy, is in the media room at one point, and I go to the kitchen, and I see her. I'm like, all right, no big deal. And then, again, I hear my real name, Matt. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Still not overly concerned because there's a lot of people here. I kind of just shuffle off like I don't hear it. Thinking, I probably won't even see her again. No big deal.
Yep.
Go back up. My drug dealer buddy is at the top of they have this media room that's got the stadium seating and all that. He's at the top. So I just go up and sit with him. Figure, well, I'm just going to hang out here the rest of the night. So we're hanging out, and sure enough, she and a couple of her friends walk in. I'm like, well, this is starting to turn bad. And she sits right in front of us, and they're whispering back and forth with her. Like, her and her friends are whispering back and forth. And with all the people that were there and everything else, I'm like, I'm dead. Like, my thought begins, there's a sliding, like, if you go down the media room, right at the front, there's a sliding door. Like, if I can make that sliding door, there's woods there. That's the only shot I got. That's what I'm going for. And I did not think it was a good one.
But important to have an exit strategy.
As dumb as it may be, that's the best I got. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, one of her friends leans back and starts whispering to him. I'm like, well, this is it. And of course, he's between me and the exit too. So I'm like, not even an easy way out that way. And again, because he loves me so much, he's like, how the fuck would I know? Why don't you just ask him? And that was the greatest thing I've ever heard in my whole entire life. So they did. They asked me, and the scary part was, obviously, I keep my backstory pretty close to my real story so that I can't mess it up too much. The orphanage and all that. But I go with an orphanage that I spent a lot of time with at a kid, so I could even tell you buildings and everything else there. So covered. Yeah. Bad part is it's not too far from where I actually grew up, so that it kind of puts a link there that's not good. But go with that, they believe it. And I did see them jumping on Facebook, but they didn't. Like, there were no pictures of me or anything like that, so that wasn't going to do me good at that time. Yeah. So that was 2 times that Mikey was nice enough to save my butt.
That's like, yeah. And so every single time you're hanging out with them, are you having a handler and support crew nearby, or is it only if like a quote unquote like drug deal or something is actually going down?
So this was the learning experience. So I always let somebody know I was out, but I had a meeting with the FBI early on when they got involved, and this was the conversation was, we can't really do close cover. You should understand that we're more of a body recovery. But this type of thing, there's no way to cover you. Like, I'm going into these guys' condos and everything like that. And they're not wrong. Like, I'm not going to blame them for that because they could have blown the case if they had really tried to do but I feel like they could have worded it differently. Don't feel like body recovery was
yeah, little more reassuring language probably would have like helped the situation. And like Mikey and Marcos, are they obviously drug dealers are often kind of known to be carrying firearms for protection or that kind of thing. Like, were they armed a lot of the time that you were dealing with them too?
So Marcos and Mikey were not, but keep in mind you're talking more mafia type setting, so they had people that were armed for them.
Yeah, they kind of had their minions, like.
Exactly, yeah. And I was never armed. There was no way I could be. I was searched. The strippers were actually very well trained at searching you. They're probably better than most cops, actually.
Yeah, because cops are your cognitive search, but so I know.
Yeah, I don't want to touch it.
Exactly.
My hand there. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So you're telling me that it's taken like 12 months for the FBI to find an appropriate person to try to like insert into this dynamic, and then they're having like the trust issues because it's a bit of a, or he or she, a bit of like fly in, fly out, all that kind of stuff. So then how does it progress from there?
So, and this was early on, and this was pretty much almost right when the FBI started getting involved. There was one night that Marcos calls me up and says, come pick me up, which that part wasn't abnormal. I go pick him up, and he says, come on, we're going to such and such bar, which we went to a lot. Again, nothing abnormal yet. And he said, well, I'm driving him over there. He's very quiet, which Marcos is very outgoing, talkative, everything like that, and usually drunk. But he's quiet. He's definitely not drunk, and he's on his phone a lot, sending texts and stuff. and not letting me see it, which is pretty abnormal for him. Like at that point, a couple red flags are starting to go off. Like, all right, his behavior is different tonight. What's up?
Yeah.
We get to the bar, and again, a place we go to all the time. Walk in, and the hostess there, who we know, we usually just sit wherever we want. And this time, she's like, "Up, your seats are ready. I'll take you to the seats." So now I have another red flag. This has never happened before. And then she takes us to the far end of the bar and has us sit there, where to my back is a curtain that covers the office. When I say office, a small, not the real office, but like a smaller office where they have some video cameras and that kind of thing. I was like, all right, this is not an accident. Now red flags are up that, all right, something's going on. I don't know what it is. And Marco's still not saying a lot. He'll just ask me dumb questions. What was the orphanage name again? How'd you get your money? A couple things like that, but not many, just super quiet. And I think it was even at the point like I asked him, like, is everything all right? You're not yourself tonight. And he's basically, I don't feel like drinking tonight. I'm like, all right. And he would
What
step
is
away.
your level of like freaking stress and fear at this point? Like, because you fucking know what's going on.
Yeah, like something's not right. I don't know what. I'm definitely nervous. And the bar we were at was a Greek bar. So now, my immediate instinct is replaying the last, month in my head. Did I mess up? Did I do something wrong? And they picked me up. Like I said, did I say something that they figure out who I am? And then you've also, got to start weighing. Do I bail? Do I ride this out? What should I do? And then the reality is I can't say I made the right decision. Again, don't ever mistake good tactics for good luck kind of thing. But I didn't bail. So we're there for a little bit, and he's like, come on, we're going to go uptown to the clubs up there. Like, all right. So we get back in the car. We get there, and the place is called Epicenter, and the clubs are on like the second and third story. You walk up steps to get to them. So we get to the second level. He gets a phone call, and he's like, hold on, and walks away again. And just leaves me standing there, and then comes back to me and says, come on, we're going back to my place. Let's have a bottle of wine. Marcos lives in a condo where he's close to the very top. It's a high-rise condo. So at this point, it's, well, fuck.
Or more importantly, maybe I'm fucked.
More appropriately. Reality's hindsight, right? When you're not emotionally involved in all that, I probably should have bailed at this point, but I didn't. So we go to his condo, and I had been to his condo, numerous times before, right? I've been hanging, and that's the weird part. Keep in mind, Marcus and I have been together a lot now lately, right?
Yeah.
I hang out with he and his daughters nonstop. His daughters will actually call me if they have problems and stuff, right? We're that close. I mean, I go over there for Sunday dinners, for crying out loud. Like, so, why all of a sudden this turn? So all the other times, the hundreds of times I've been to Marcus' place, the lights are always on. He never turns the lights off. I swear he sleeps with the lights on. So you walk in, there's the kitchen right here, little hallway, straight into the living room, then balcony on the other side, and then a small bathroom on the right, and his bedroom and a bathroom on the left. All doors are open. You see everything. All lights are on in every room when I've always been there. Walk in this time, and it's completely dark when we walk in. And I'm like, you are this. Again,
not going to end well. Yeah.
I should definitely turn and run. But he goes, go on, have a seat on the couch. I'll get us a bottle of wine. So I walk in, and side note, and I think we talked about it, they did a TV show. There's a TV show called Undercover on Tape on A&E, and I did this case on there, and this is the part that they focused on was this night.
Okay. Yeah.
And it bothers me to this day. Like, they did an outstanding job, but it bothers me to this day because the apartment doesn't look like his. Like, it was funny because like when I watched it, I went right back. I was all pissed.
You're like, that's not right. That's not right.
Like, just the stupidest thing in the world. But anyway, still side note there. So I literally walked straight to the balcony and looked down because I wanted to see where I was going. Because I was confident at that point that I was taking a dive. And there was a pool. Like, yes, it was a long ways down, but there was a pool. So I did think maybe I could at least aim for the water.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have made any difference.
No, it probably would have depended whether you had like a bullet in your skull when you were like taking that dive. Like, all these things come into play. For sure.
I mentioned this would have been, I think, winterish. Like it would have probably been. It was definitely cold outside, I think. So that water would have
Yeah.
been cold too. It's just been a bad situation. So I go, I have a seat on the couch. He gets a bottle of wine, a couple glasses. Keep in mind, I think he can go through a bottle of wine normally in like 5 minutes. And this time he's barely drinking it.
Mhm.
But again, he's still on his phone. So at this point, he's asking me all kinds of questions over and over. And at one point, or several points, he gets up and goes in his bedroom. And you'll know this. You know the criminal open and door shut technique, right? Like you knock on that door, and they either slide their body out and shut it right behind them. You cannot see what's in that room. And I mean, that just looks, it looks
Yeah.
normal. You'll never suspect anything.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he's doing when he comes in and out of the bedroom. Is he's kind of sliding in, sliding out.
Super shady.
I'm a dead man. So all night he's asking me, and it's maybe 20 different questions. It's not a lot of questions.
Did you challenge him at any point, like to be like, mate, what the fuck? Or you were just kind of like, just gonna roll with it?
I went with it for a while, and then I was like, we're close. We've been hanging out. Like, give me a break. I know your daughters, for crying out loud. I come eat at your house. Did I do something? What's wrong? And kind of going that route. And he wasn't joyful. He's like, no, everything's fine. About the extent of what I got. So this goes on until about 6 o'clock in the morning. I can tell because it becomes daylight outside. I can see the sun coming up. That's how long it's been. And then just like that, it's, all right, you can leave. I'll call you later. And that's it. Like that abrupt, everything else.
Yeah.
So I just literally out the door.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I get to my car, you put the key in. This was still back at the time where you used the key. And it's like, is this thing going to blow up when I turn this?
Yeah.
I'd gone through my car. So they had, and I could tell, like, even the little, what do you call that? The center console thing.
So console thing, yeah. Rifled through and.
Like, I don't think they were trying to hide by any means that they were going through the car. So
yeah.
I pull, I leave, head to the apartment, and I was either in the driveway or on my way there, and he calls and says, all right, everything's good. Meet me in about 2 hours. Like, all right. And so a couple hours later, we meet at the strip club. Like, all right, we passed. We're good to go. And so basically, the Greeks were now vouching for me. Like, he vouched for me to the Greeks, which this is the hard side of, especially this type of undercover work. He was in more trouble at this point now than I was, because he has one job, and when he vouches for someone, they better be who he says they are. Because if they're not, that's on his head. He takes the ultimate blame for this. And so that, and I knew that at that minute that I really put him in a bad spot, that eventually one day this could be bad. And so that was hard, because I like Marcos. I enjoyed hanging out with Marcos. I know he's a criminal, but he was a lot of fun to hang out with. We had a good time, all that. So, and of course, knowing his daughters and all that definitely plays with you mentally, more so afterwards than during. So within a couple of days of there, I'm introduced to an upper level Greek, and that's when things really start to roll. And then I'm out with them every single night. Introduced to a whole new world at that point, I guess. But it was crazy. And then obviously at that point, I'm paying people off to looking at clubs where we're going to open them, all that kind of thing. So that goes on. I finally, the money man, they take to him. Everything is good. As long as that took. And then I can kind of slowly
extricate myself.
Yeah, first is I'm not around as much. I
have to go away business, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then it's just hit me by phone, and then eventually the phone calls. So it would have been August 2011 that I was completely out. And then before the end of August, I had been asked to attempt to infiltrate a domestic terrorist group.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Um,
uh, which was a good
before
conversation to
we,
have with my wife.
yeah. Oh, of course. And yeah, and like, I know that that's a great job that you were involved in, and I want to get to that. But like, was there like you were living and breathing this other person's life, and like you're saying, like you can't help but get some kind of like emotional attachment is maybe too strong, but like you're saying, you have some kind of like, it was fun to hang out with, and I met his daughters and all that kind of thing. Like, is there some kind of psychological debrief or like after a job like that with your department?
Not for that one, no.
No. Okay.
Like there was that particular case, it was all about mission success,
Okay.
not about well-being.
Okay.
Trying to put that as
And
gently as I can.
I understand. And then, and not to take anything away from you, but like, why were you picked for this next job, considering you had just come out of what, like, of the course of 18 months of fairly consistent deep undercover work?
So I guess one, I was the first person in my department to ever do that.
Okay.
And especially in local department and Fed level, especially since 80s and mid 90s, that stopped. Nobody was doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, for good reason. It's not worth it by any way, shape, or anything.
Yeah.
So that played into it. I also, the person that was heading up this, I think what was it called? I forget what they were calling the unit, but specific for the DNC, because that was what was, the bombing was planned for the DNC, the Democratic National
Yeah.
Convention.
Oh, okay.
So that's what they got information on, that's what they were planning to bomb. And so he was.
So when it's such a realistic threat like that, they just have to take it so seriously and just plow ahead.
I could have said no, I'm not doing this.
What was that conversation with your wife like, if you don't mind me asking?
So, and I skipped the part. So when I came back from the first case, I was so stupid. Like I assumed that everybody hit pause on their life and was waiting for me to return. Because I'm that important. And
nothing like a healthy level of narcissism.
yes, it's good. But it's like I guess you just don't realize it. Like it's not actually expected people to hit pause, but you forget that everybody's like
life goes on.
I lost friends after the first case. Like remember, and there was more to it. To help protect my identity, the FBI had floated some rumors around there that I was gone in another country. Some people that didn't like me floated rumors that I was a criminal. Like when you just disappear like this, like, obviously people have their opinions. So yeah, you come back and I had like obviously my sergeant who I owe my life to, and then I have two really good friends, Chris and Jeff. Chris is an ATF agent in another state, and he was the one that was always in contact with me. And he's a close family friend. Like our families are very, very close. But he was the one who was in contact with me and helped keep me sane through that. And then Jeff, literally at one point, called me and says, "We're meeting in the middle of this case, right, where I can't see anybody, more or less take phone calls and stuff like that." And ended up picking a place way outside of town. And he says, "Man, I just need to sit down and make sure you're okay." He goes, "I know you haven't been able to have contact with anybody and all this." He was just worried about, like, it was the coolest thing ever, like especially in that situation where handlers and everything were very mission focused. And so you're by yourself, you're lost. But anyway, so I get done with this case, this first one, and my wife's name is Retta. We end up having a long conversation. Like, we have to readapt. She's now gotten used to living a life where she takes care of the kid. And I missed obviously so much during that time. And she had, gotten some promotions at her work, new responsibility, new role. Like I missed everything. And so we had to kind of reconnect. Like,
Understandably.
living separate lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was hard. I mean, there's no question, especially, right as we're getting through that, then I get up and leave again. And now she has been incredible. Matter of fact, we joke because a couple of the other podcasts I've done, some of the comments have been, she's a rock star. I was like, oh, I see. I can infiltrate these groups and you're the rock star. But I mean, it's true. Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't get the credit she deserves for all this.
Well, I think as well, though, and I'm, I obviously was a cop, but I'm also the wife of a firefighter, and I can see it from both perspectives. And I think, there's something to be said about you knowing that she had shit handled at home, and having that confidence in her allowed you to go and play this incredible, crazy, like, make-believe world, knowing that, like, you're like, I know my kid's taken care of, I know she's okay. Like, I think there's like that dichotomy of knowing that, like, if she's got everything sorted, that everything's okay, and then you go and do what you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, otherwise it would, like, and that's the whole thing. I don't like, so they talk, that one best case scenario for deep undercovers is they're single, and I immediately say no. Like, that would not, you'd be way too reckless. I think it helps to have somebody back at your house depending on you, so you're not as reckless. You set barriers on yourself. Like,
Kind of helps you kind of hold on to reality, I guess, too.
Yeah, I was too reckless during these cases as it was. I shouldn't like imagine being single going too far. And then the other thing is that you can't be married and make it through these cases. And part of it, like, so there was one person in my department who started to do a case like this with a motorcycle gang. And he ended up, it wasn't very long. He got a little bit burned. But it cost him his marriage. And like, I had talked to him, like, when I first went into Vice Narcotics, this was the guy that I idolized, right? I want to be this guy. He's the coolest. And so I picked his brain as much as I could. And what cost him his marriage was he didn't talk to, like, he followed the rules. Because you're not supposed to talk about these cases. Well, I threw that out the window. I said, you know what, I'd rather blow the case or get in trouble than lose my marriage. So she knew exactly what I was doing. Now, there were certain details, like if it was case-specific details, it just wouldn't affect anything. I'm not going into that. But yeah, that was kind of the way.
Yeah, but I think it's one of those things, and obviously there's like SOPs and rules for a reason. But like you're saying, like your marriage and your relationship would have had to have been incredibly strong to even consider going down this path. So to break the rules like a little bit, and like you're saying, like, this is a job, that's your marriage, that's your life, that's your family. Like, there has to be some kind of level of prioritization. Otherwise, what's the point?
Exactly. And I mean, obviously, in that job in particular, you have a tendency to prioritize work over your family as it is. Obviously, what I was doing was extremely selfish on the personal side of things. I mean, it wasn't fair to my family to do these cases. The second one, I would have failed the second one if it wasn't for what was at stake. Mentally, the second one, I was getting in really bad shape really fast.